For some of us, money isn't just numbers, it sends a stress signal in your body. When finances feel uncertain, cortisol spikes, sleep tanks, cravings rise, burnout follows, and it's rarely logical. You see, our money memories, they are the early stories that we have absorbed about scarcity, about worth, about safety when it comes to money. And they quietly drive today's choices, from avoiding bills to overspending for relief. Today, we are going to amplify the psychology of money so your bank account and your body finally get on the same team. So my guest is Jennifer Rogers Markwell, and she is the president of Platinum Wealth Management and the host of Platinum Talks Wealth, an Emmy award-winning journalist turned wealth advisor. She is known for demystifying money, empowering women to claim their seat at the table. So let's get into it. Welcome to True Wellness with Dr. D, the podcast where we explore what it takes to live with vitality, balance, and purpose. I am Dr. D, and each week I'll bring you powerful tools, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you thrive in every area of your life. From health and wellness to mindset and navigating life's challenges, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of true well-being. Be sure to check the show notes and grab your free copy of the True Wellness Checklist so you can get started on your journey to true wellness right away. Now, let's get started. Okay, you guys, money isn't just about dollars and cents. It's one of the biggest hidden drivers of our health. Stress about finances, it can create anxiety, lead you to sleepless nights, it can trigger inflammation, it can even accelerate chronic illnesses. But here's the catch. Our relationship with money is rarely just logical. It's also emotional, and it's shaped by our early experiences, by the unspoken beliefs that we've carried into our adulthood. And today we are going to dive into the psychology of money, how your money memories have an impact, your financial secrets and your financial infidelities, how they're all impacting you and your bank account, and how as women we can step into empowering ourselves when it comes to money. So my guest today is Jennifer Rogers Markwell. She is the president of Platinum Wealth Management and host of the Platinum Talks Wealth podcast as well. She's an Emmy nominated journalist, right? Turned wealth advisor. You're going to have to tell us all about how that happened, right? So she shifted her career after navigating some investment stuff within her family. And now she is taking that and empowering women and families with financial confidence so that they can live into the future that they're hoping to lead into with, right? So she is one of Sierra Nevada's top 20 most powerful women and is the state commissioner for the Nevada Commission for Women. So she's going to bring with her today authority and really heart to this conversation about money. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Awesome. So talk to us a little bit about how did you get into this to begin with? Because you were doing all this great stuff with journalism.
Yeah. So I never would have put myself on this path ever, right? So for me, I worked in TV, I anchored, I reported news, I executive produced. I did that for 15 plus years. I thought I'd always stay in some capacity. I had actually just signed a national contract to travel around the world to interview chefs, kind of like an Anthony Bourdain, but light type of, programming. And my grandpa got sick. My grandparents raised me. They were mom and dad. Went home, obviously I signed the contract, but couldn't go or do anything. Went home to make sure he was good. And he was kind of the guy that was like the ornery, crabby grandpa, right? So I thought he's going to live to 156. He's going to outlive me. But he didn't. So he ended up going in the hospital. He passed away, and he was really the backbone of our family. And they raised me. They were like mom and dad to me. My mom was super young when she had me. So they were my rock. So in that moment, we were mourning the loss of him, completely devastating because we didn't think he was going anywhere. And then he did. And granted, he had health issues along the way too. But my grandma was like, okay, what do we do? And in that moment, I was like, well, let's figure this out. So had her move in with me. She lived with me, which was always the case that I would always take care of them in some capacity because they took care of me. But
Yeah.
in that process, we found ourselves going in front of different advisors at different institutions, and they didn't have a lot, but what they had was spread around. And we never had the warm, fuzzy feeling that anyone cared or wanted to do what was in her best interest. And she said, if
Mm,
we're going through this, imagine how many other women are also going through this too. And
yes.
in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm going to learn everything I can. And 15 plus years later, I've been a licensed financial advisor, really trying to help her make sense of investing. And then I saw the need to help other women and others make sense of investing. It's a foreign language. It's been kind of hidden and secretive for a long time to a certain extent. And I really want to make the conversation open and not taboo. And let's talk about it and let's learn from one another. So that's been really my quest in life. And I feel like it's been a gift.
I love that because I do feel like there is some taboo-ness around money and the whole conversation about money. And I see day in and day out how money has an impact on so many different areas of people's lives. We see clients who come in and their financial stress is like off the charts, and now it's having this trickle down effect where it's now impacting their health overall. And then the cycle continues. That impacts your health overall, and now guess what? Now that's impacting your financial situation, and they kind of end up stuck in this vortex. But it's part of it is there's so much taboo around money and right and wrong and this and that people really get stuck. So help us get unstuck.
Yeah, that's my quest in life, truly. I feel like that's where similar situations, right? Clients that I have, I've got clients kind of across the board, clients who are starting out or starting over, and clients with multi-million dollar portfolios. But I found a common thread amongst all of them. It was to the point where can I afford this? Even the multimillionaires, Jennifer, can I buy a couch? Can I afford a couch? Knowing that they have a ton of money on the sidelines, but they're going back to what their money memory was, right? And
Yeah.
definably a money memory is something as a memory or an event that you had as a younger person or as a child that helped mold your relationship to money now as an adult. And that conversation doesn't really happen. But when I have the conversation with people, there's that light bulb moment. Oh, it was, in that case specifically about the couch, it was that person's family, blue collar, Midwestern, trying to get food on the table. So even though this person was wildly successful, it always went back to that moment of, am I going to have food on the table? Am I going to be able to retire? What does this look like? If I buy this couch, am I going to hurt myself? And it's wild because I've seen across the board, no matter who you are, where you live, your background, your socioeconomic status, regardless, everyone has a money memory. And some people have changed the narrative for themselves to better serve themselves and what their goals are. And some people don't even know that that money memory truly is affecting their relationship with their finances today.
Yeah, it remains hidden. It's kind of like, for me, even in my own story, and I look at my own history around money, and I'm super cautious on the side of spending, unless, for example, it's my kids, and then it's like no holds bar, right? But everything else is like super tight and super cautious, and it comes from I remember hearing stories that, when my grandparents came over, they came over as immigrants. They didn't have shoes. They walked around with, cardboard wrapped around their feet back then, because that's what people did to survive, even during the winter. And so there's like, those are all money memories that I don't think we even pay attention to. So how do you teach people to connect with those money memories so that they can make choices and decisions that will benefit them versus, coming from that space of the specific memories?
Yeah, well, it started out, like I said, through client conversations or people that wanted to work with us in discovery meetings and kind of talking through. And you see within couples or relationships, one person's definitely different than the other. And many times the money memory is the reasoning why. So I think having those initial conversations was what was the spark for me. From here, I've, co-authored 4 different international best-selling books. about sharing this topic. I've also, really put ourselves out there on national speaking circuits as well, just because I feel like I want to scream this from the rooftops so people can have that aha moment. Again, whether they want to work with us, fantastic, or not, if we can create a ripple in the world where people are thinking about things differently to better serve themselves and empower themselves, it's such a gift. I was sharing with you earlier, we created a free Facebook online group for reasons like this. So people can learn and grow and have a safe space to have these conversations and kind of navigate through, just because I feel like it's not out there. It's not out there as much as I would like it to be. But for myself and my team, like that's our quest. Our quest is to get these conversations so they're conversational, so people are feeling comfortable with it, not having to hide and having that self-realization so they can have those light bulb moments to be like, wow, that's my money memory. Does it still make sense for me to take that with me? Does it still serve me? Or do I need to change my narrative to make my future better?
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, everybody, we will have the link for the Facebook community in the show notes. So make sure that you check the show notes to get yourself enrolled into that Facebook community, because we all want to be in this conversation, like you said, that's not being talked about enough. And as you're speaking about that, I'm thinking about, okay, well, how come we don't talk about money, right? We've been trained like, don't ask anybody like how much they make, or we've been maybe felt to have shame about having a certain income or a certain income level or certain debt, right? So how do you suggest people navigate those emotions, right? That shame, that anxiety, all that stuff that pops up the minute the word money comes into play?
Yeah, and I think it can be a little bit of a gender thing, right? With men, it's been, hey, this is how much I make, and here's what I do, and here's what's going on. Again, not all men, but traditionally. Whereas with women, I've found that again, not all women, but a good core of folks, there's been kind of a lack of worthiness emotionally that pops up a lot of times where, oh, it's fine. Or, I was brought up that money is the root of all evil, right? There's so many different terminologies and affirmations that weren't always positive affirmations that were put kind of society, basis, especially for women, about talking about that. We're seeing now more of a movement. It's the wealth transfer, which you probably have heard of. Trillions of dollars are moving into the hands of women because women have their own companies. They're making more money. There's inheritances. Women are self-made. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects there where women are coming into this very strong point in their world. And if they're not feeling worthy, this is where we want to lift you. This is where we want to lift each other and learn from each other so we can be successful and we can empower ourselves in our own financial journeys. So I think that's the first thought. So those of you listening or watching, think about what your money memory is. I just had a speaking engagement where it was 500 women that I was speaking with, and we were talking about that. And there were so many women in the room. I got out and walked around and talked to folks. And they're like, I've never thought of that. And women of all ages in healthcare was the group that I was speaking to.
Sure.
And they had never thought of that moment before. And there were some women in that room that didn't write anything down because I had like a little questionnaire of like, put it on paper what that looks like. And some were like, I don't know. And I said, you know what? That is going to hit you when you're driving home or you're in the shower or you're having a moment with your kids or whatever that is. And you're going to be like, oh, that's my money memory. That's my money memory. And I think even being open by sharing like what ours are and sharing ours in, our community that we have online. Mine was my grandparents, right? They raised me, as I said earlier. They had a cabinet in their house and it was full of cans. I mean, hundreds of cans. Bean, corn, whatever, right? But at one point, like there was bloated cans of corn. And I was like, guys, we gotta throw these out. Like, if you're gonna go out in the world, I want you to go out for a good reason, not because of botulism, because of can of corn, right? Truly. And so I remember throwing these out in a garbage bag, and they were so mad at me in that moment because they were like, you're wasting food, right? Because for them, they were depression kids and it was getting food on the table.
Yes.
So I said, I will replace every can that I throw away, but I want you to, obviously be healthy and not get botulism. But for me, that was such an impactful moment. And now my husband will call me out because in our cabinet, he's like, Jennifer, he's like, this is like 4 years old. He's like, seriously. And I'm like, okay, I threw it out. But truly those seeds were so planted in me. I don't want to be wasteful. I want to be thoughtful. I want to be, really considerate about how I spend money, about what food looks like. And those were my money memories, deep rooted. Even though now, obviously, I'm in a much different space, right? And our quest is to do this, but I want to share my story so other people hopefully feel comfortable sharing theirs so we can all learn and lift each other along the way.
Yeah, I think what you say is really important. I mean, there's two things, right? It's number one, like I always say, we've got to bring to our awareness what we're not currently seeing if we're expecting to have a little more facility around it to be able to make choices versus being driven by unconscious thoughts and behaviors. But the other part of that too is, I do believe everything is energy. And when we're in this like low vibrational frequency of lack, the truth is what shows up in our life then is more of that lack. And so we get stuck in this perpetuating cycle, and I know people, clients, friends, family members who find that they're like, why can't I break free from this? And it's like, okay, well, where's it coming from? So we talk about in the True Wellness Framework, the U stands for underlying root cause. So what's the underlying root cause that got us to this place here now?
Yeah, it's that money memory, right? That you're still dwelling on. Maybe you're not realizing it, but we talk about that too. It's the whole mentality, what you think about, you bring about. If you're coming from a place of lack of what you've grown up and what you've seen, then this is a time where, is that still serving you? Probably not so much. Is it time to really kind of lean into affirmations and surround yourself with people that can educate you and help you and handhold and lift you as well? Yes.
Yeah.
If you want to change your narrative, it starts with you initially, right? It starts with you having a conversation in a community like ours, or talking to a financial advisor and saying, what should I be doing? Get the initial foundation of what you should do to lift yourself. And again, this comes from people who are multi-millionaires to people who are starting out and starting over with $1,000, right?
Right.
The underlining kind of thought process with money memories is there for everyone, and it does affect you, whether you're realizing it on a surface level or it's still maybe a seed that you haven't quite navigated through yet.
Yes, exactly. What would you say is the beginning of that thought process for people, or what do you ask your clients for them to begin to engage in that thought process? Because when things are hidden, how do we unhide them?
Yeah, I think it's, again, being open with communication, right? You have to be open to it. And some people aren't. Like in that room that I was speaking at with those women, some of those women were not open in that moment, but they were like, wow, that's something I had never thought of before. And I'll bet you in a couple weeks, if that hasn't popped in their head, that absolutely they will have a moment because we planted that seed there, and they will have a moment being like, oh my gosh, that's why I do what I do. Some people have already realized it, but a lot of people have never even heard the money memory terminology. So I
Right.
think initially even having that is huge. I talked to somebody that wants to work with us yesterday, and same thing. They had kind of a family situation. They were like, yeah, I saved all these places, but I'm kind of out of sight with it and I'm not tied to it. And I was like, what is your upbringing? What does it look like for you? And I kind of explained money memories, and I could see like some hesitant, but I could see aha moments that were happening for that person. And at the end of our meeting, they were like, yeah, we want you to help us with everything. Thank you so much. We've never had that conversation before, because if you're working with an advisor, that's fantastic, right? Good. But a
Right.
lot of advisors will help you with, certain things like investment planning, financial planning, like managing your assets, 401ks, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But getting deep into just the psychology side of things, I want that to become more mainstream, and it's not. There's only a handful of basically folks that are PhD psychologists, psychiatrists that focus on finance, that focus on the psychology of money.
Right.
I'm in the process of going down that path too. So that'll be my goal, to get my doctorate there so I can help at even a higher, different level.
Love
But I
it.
feel like that's so important, and it's so not a conversation. So again, we're here to scream it from the rooftops and have people have those moments if they're open to it. And if not, we're planting a seed, and 2 weeks from now, maybe you'll have that aha moment.
Exactly. They'll grab your books, they'll start doing more research and start learning. Talk to me about like what would you say are maybe like the three biggest, pitfalls that people have when it comes to money in general, and how their psychology of money is impacting their behaviors in their life.
Yeah, I think there's way more than three, but I'll throw some out. We don't have hours on this podcast, but I think being disciplined, right? Being disciplined in whatever your strategy looks like. So that's kind of a twofold. Like, what's your strategy? Is it to retire one day? Is it to work forever? Everybody has a different goal in life financially.
Yeah.
Are you doing the right things? Are you being consistent? Are you putting money in a monthly amount into your checking savings and or investment accounts and or your 401k? Are you doing that disciplinedly every single month? And then if you step back, what's your big picture goal? Like, truly, what is it? One of the things that I did in a speaking engagement too is have people take a pen, take it to paper, and draw out what your retirement looks like to you.
Right.
It's a 400% likelihood of that happening because it rewires your brain when you're drawing it and talking about it for you to have that become an actuary, right? And something that actually happens in your world ultimately. And I
Yes.
think that, and again, it could be a stick figure of you on the beach. That's what mine was. I'm no Picasso by any means, but for that, that just rewires your brain into thinking, yes, this can happen ultimately. So
Mhm.
what's your goal? Are you being disciplined? And I mean, I hate to say it, but a lot of folks will stick their head in the sand to a certain extent. And then they'll notice 20, 30, 40 years have gone by. Like, because you're not, opening statements. You're like, oh, I'll deal with that later. I mean,
Yeah.
regardless of where you're at, the time is now. Like, if you're 20, fantastic. Good for you. I think everyone wishes they could rewind the clock to that point to be
Mhm.
able to be disciplined and do the right things at that age. If you're 40, if you're 60, what are you doing now? Like, you can still figure it out and start now and at least do something, but the time is now, regardless of where you're at.
Right, right. You hit on something that's important, and I'd like to dive into it a little bit more, because you're right. When things are uncomfortable, we kind of like push them aside. We pretend that they don't exist. It's the same thing with people's health, right? They're like, "Oh, I'm feeling a little funny. I'm just gonna like keep on going," and then all of a sudden, like they crash because they kept pushing it aside. But we see that a lot with money too, right? Like the bill comes in, and people are like, "I can't look at that right now. I get too overwhelmed, or there's too much fear." Or what have you. But how does that, I'm going to call it an avoidance, right? It's an avoidance, the avoiding being uncomfortable about whatever that reality might be. How does that impact people in their psychology of money?
Yeah, that's a big one. Like you had said, in so many different realms, your health, your wealth, everything. I mean, if you avoid things, they don't happen. But if you avoid things, they get worse, right? So truly, like putting a spotlight on that. And honestly, I feel like life can make you uncomfortable sometimes when you're in a growing moment.
Mhm.
Is it uncomfortable to see that you have a negative balance somewhere or you're not doing the right things? Yes. But can you fix it? Absolutely. Absolutely, you can. And I think just getting that self worth again, that you are worthy and you deserve a seat at the table, regardless of where you're at with your financial journey, is huge. So giving yourself some self love in that moment, opening statements, figuring out where you're at. What does it look like? Having conversations, like you are worthy of those conversations too, of saying, what's going on in the world? Why is this happening? How is this affecting me? How could I be doing different or better, right? To better serve myself, I think is the powerful one. But you have to open up those papers once in a while. You have to shed a light on your world. And again, back to you, the same thing with health. You can't avoid not feeling well. I mean, you see so many programs of people saying, oh, I felt that way 5 years ago, but I thought it would go away. And progressively things get worse and worse and worse. It's similar with finance too, right? If you ignore things for years over time, it gets worse. But can we fix it, make it better? Yes. We just have to be present.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk about, imagine, there are, like you said, there's two types of people. There are people who are, they're sort of at that bottom level. They're just trying to figure out what to do to get themselves out from underneath water. And then you've got people who are, they've got millions of dollars that they can use and invest. How do you approach those different types of people? Like, how would you guide that kind of category? Right. So the person who's coming in, who's underwater, who's in debt, who's like, I don't know what my future looks like, even if I'm drawing a stick figure on the beach.
Yeah, that's a hard one. I think that comes down to, do you have a budget? I know a budget's a scary, hairy term for a lot of people too, but what are you spending? What's coming in from income and what are you spending? What's going out? Is there a way for us to have you look at, what's hemorrhaging? Can we stop that hemorrhaging? What does that look like? And then once we do that, there's some basic things that I would request that people would do for themselves before they even work with a financial advisor. Do you have emergency money on the sidelines? If
Right.
things hit the fan in your world, what's your first line of defense?
Mhm.
You have to have that. And these are things that, again, if you're not there yet, let's kind of look internally and say, okay, can I maybe not buy DoorDash every single day for the week? Maybe I only get Starbucks once instead of, 7 days out of the week, right? You minimize it, you figure it out what works for you, but you have to pay yourself first. You have to love yourself first. And I think
Mm,
ultimately that's where that comes in. And again, there's no perfect quest for everybody because everybody's situation is slightly different. But I think it goes down to what's coming in, what's going out. does that match, or is it way different? Because obviously we know what we need to do. We need to pull back our spending if that's the case, and it's way different. If you have more that you have emergency money on the sidelines. And then once you have those in place, then it's okay. What do you have in goal setting? Like, what's your long-term goal? Is it to buy a house? Is it to retire? Do you have something set up for that? Then that's where that conversation would come in. Are you wanting to buy a car or save for whatever that is? Like, think of those as separate buckets along the way that you can lean into. Here's my bucket for my car. Here's my bucket for, my house. Here's my bucket for retirement. Are you doing the right things in those buckets? But again, first and foremost, knowing that emergency bucket, if things hit the fan, that is filled up first. You have that ready to go. Because again, in our economy, in our world, are you going to have your job? Are you going to get laid off? What does that look like? Are you self-employed? Is your income higher one month, lower than the other because you're working on commission? There's so many different factors here, which it's hard to blanket a perfect response to this question. But I think taking care of you, emergency money, are you doing the right things for what your goals are? Is your goal retirement? Is it traveling? Everybody's goal is different. What do you want to see that look like in your life? What would make you happy? I think having those basic conversations with yourself can get you to the point where you can take pen to paper and be like, heck yeah, I want to be in a tiki hut on a beach making cocktail drinks, whatever that is for you. Or maybe you're gardening in your backyard. Maybe there's no official cost associated with it, but that brings you so much joy. Fantastic. How do we get there to have you do that, to have more joy in your life?
Yeah. I love that. There's so many parallels. I'm thinking about, what you're saying, like just the leaks in the bucket, right? Like, where are you hemorrhaging? It,
Yeah.
it reminds me of like people who come in and they're like, hey, I really want to lose weight. And they're like, no, but my diet looks really good. And then it's like, but a lot of times we don't see it for ourselves. We're like, oh, but I just had a little snack there and a little snack there, and I didn't really put those in. It's kind of it's the exact same thing. It's like we've got to put our focus and attention on two things from what you said. One is what's really happening, right? And then the other thing is, where do we really want to go? And what do we really want it to look like? Is
And
that
that's a tough one because no one can answer that but you.
exactly?
Right?
Yeah.
No one can answer that but you. So I can't tell you what your retirement should look like or what your, dream is. Like, only you know that dream. So if you haven't given that thought, like, give yourself, 5 minutes and say, what makes me happy? What brings me joy? What do I want to do in my life? Like, what does this look like? Do I want to work forever? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're like I said, want to travel, or I want to go on a camper around the US, whatever that is, that's your dream. And we want to help you reach those dreams, but that's a personal thing for you.
Yeah, I love that. Tell me about your pet peeves when it comes to women and money. Where do women get stuck?
I think that's a good question. That's a really good question. So a few different places. I think the lack of feeling worthy, I see that a lot.
Mhm.
The situation where there's one very dominant person in a relationship and they're like, oh, my partner has it covered. My partner has it covered. And they're not present for those conversations. And then, like in my situation, my grandpa passed. He was the guy. My grandma was not the gal. I mean, she could balance a checkbook and do plenty of things, but not that they had a lot, but it was spread around. And it was emotional dealing with the loss of him. And now we're trying to pick up the pieces in other areas. That's a lot. So if
Right.
you are, in a partnership or a couplingship or whatever that looks like for you, a marriage, make sure that you're present and you know what's happening. I mean, you're an equal partner in that of, Lord forbid, what if something happens to your spouse or your partner? What does that look like for you? So not that it's a pet peeve, it's hard because I feel like it was back in the day, it was definitely more of a male driven thing and women took the back seat a lot. But now, again, it's the point of empowering women in their journey financially. So they're also taking responsibility to learn things. I mean, finance is a foreign language. There's so many acronyms and weird things, and you're like, I don't even know what that means. And then it's a moving target of, actuary tables and fees and what you can put in accounts changing every single year. So things are moving and changing on a very frequent basis. I would say also another thing, actually, one thing that is frustrating, quite frankly, are the folks who are on TikTok, right? You see somebody who
Oh,
is 12 years old on TikTok telling you to put all your money into X, Y, or Z. And you're like, you're not licensed. You're not a financial advisor. You've no education. Like,
yeah. Mhm.
what are you doing? And
Yeah.
they're, touting that they made so much money, but really, you're 12 and you live in your mom's, basement. Like, what are you doing there? So I would say making sure that you are talking to somebody that's reputable, that's licensed, that has a background of knowing what they're doing. And I always say too, this is actually a good one. FINRA, FINRA, is basically kind of our governing body in essence. So if you're planning on working with any licensed financial advisor, their information's up there. You can pull them
Right.
up and say, hey, do you have any customer complaints? Do you have lawsuits? Transparency is there. You can see it. And I always say, before you work with anyone, go there. I am very boring. Feel free to pull me up. You will see that I am boring. I have nothing there other than a bunch of licenses and been in the industry over 15 years, right? But know who you're working with, know who you're talking to, know what that looks like, because that's important, right? Truly important.
Yeah, I love that. It's so funny that you talk about I talk about the same thing with health all the time. It's like all of a sudden everybody on social media is an expert. They're all telling you all these different things to do and everybody's so confused. It's like information overload and how do you really know like who knows what they're talking about and who doesn't and like you're saying like the 12-year-old in their mother's basement and that's a big deal. So making sure that you're actually getting real, educated, time tested information. I mean, that's critical today. I mean, we know the AI wave is coming and it's only going to get worse. And so there's all these just random snippets of information out there. So it'll never replace that work that we need to do together as human beings to strategize and implement and talk about goals and dreams and money memories and all of that.
Totally. And it'll never, I mean, AI has its pros and cons, truly, but I think it's never going to replace the human element of us having a conversation, us making eye contact, me learning about you and why you do what you do and how you tick and how can I serve you, right? That's going to be a whole different ballgame. That human element's huge. AI is not going to have the understanding of like you lost your spouse or you went bankrupt or, you found out your spouse has gambled all your money or you got an inheritance or won the lottery. Like AI is not going to have that emotional element with you to, handhold and to really support you in that level.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true. The one thing that we haven't touched on, Jennifer, is the financial infidelities, right? Our money infidelities. And I know you speak about that. So tell us a little bit more about what that is and what we need to pay attention to there.
Yeah, that's a huge one. And as I shared with you for folks, that's a big, hairy, scary term, right? So on my podcast, we talk about that quite a bit. And that was another thing I was hearing from clients too, that I was like, ooh, yeah, there's some of them out there. I mean, I had a gal on the podcast talking about how she was younger. Her family was first generation. Her dad had a small business. She was helping him balance. And she was, I think, 14 or 15 at the time, helping him balance a checkbook. So she was going through and she had a younger sister and she was like, okay, yeah, here's our school stuff. Here's some other school stuff. I don't know what this school stuff is. And she was seeing double expenses. Well, come to find out, her dad had a whole nother family and was paying for a whole nother family, a whole nother kids, a whole nother thing. So for her, that financial infidelity was that moment having a trust issue. And then she's now an adult, so took that into her own marriage of still having a trust issue there. So I think it's shining a light on things that are uncomfortable that could definitely strategically hurt your relationship with money or your relationship with those around you.
Sure.
Another story, a gal in New York was talking about how she wasn't impeccable with herself with her own money. She blew her rent money. This is very Sex in the City, right? Very Carrie Bradshaw. Blew her money on a pair of Christian Louboutin heels and some other things instead of paying her rent money. So at the end of the day, she was hurting herself by not doing the right things. She wasn't being impeccable to her own word about her own money.
Yes.
I mean, some of these are powerful. We've had one lady whose husband, gambled millions and millions of dollars, passed away, and she was not aware of any of it until a tax bill came in. So,
Mm,
I mean, there's a lot of things that we can learn from each other. And again, I think a lot of this comes back to communication. Are
yeah.
we communicating with each other? Are we communicating to ourselves, being honest with ourselves? Um, Business partners that were, taking additional funds out of businesses and not telling the other business partner, that's challenging too. I mean, and they're all things that we can learn from, even down to the point where people hide spending and shopping, right? I mean, I'm guilty of this to a certain extent. My husband's like, oh, is that new? And I'm like, no, it's not new. I've had it for a few weeks. I haven't worn it before, but it's not brand new, right? But at the end of the day, like, why do I need to tell him that? Like, I bought that. But still, I mean, why not be like, yeah, I bought it a few weeks ago, right? And again, I feel like I'm a work in progress to a certain extent on that too. But
Mhm.
there's people that hide their shopping, that hide shopping bags, that spend maybe outside of what they should be spending, and then not sharing that with their partner along the way. Or again, the Christian Louboutin heel gal, right? She wasn't being honest to herself.
Right. Right. Little laugh. So all of these things though, they do help us grow, right? They're like shining a spotlight and like, okay, here's the issue. And the beauty in that is when the spotlight is shown on that issue, you now have the facility to change it and master it and create a
100%.
future as a result of that realization.
Totally, totally. And honestly, that makes us grow and do better. And when we listen to other people's stories or really give time to listen to our own, then we can change the narrative to better serve ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I love that. Well, I always ask Jennifer as we wrap up here. So give us 3 practical things that we can begin to get on the money train in a better way than we might be on right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a little self-serving. I would say feel free to join our community. It's,
Yes.
again, totally educational only. If you want to work with us, great. If you don't, that's fine. The goal is to really open a conversation up and plant a seed and create a ripple in finance. So you're thinking about things differently. We have affirmations in the group. We have, snippets from my podcast talking about these money memories and financial infidelities. Give yourself that grace to take time to say, hey, what does that look like for me psychologically? Like, what's my money memory? What's a financial infidelity? Think about that to a deep level and see if that is affecting how you do things. I think you'll be surprised many times.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I feel like even the taking a pen to paper and drawing out what your ideal retirement would look like.
Mm-hmm.
Could be a stick figure on the beach. Again, no Picassos here needed. But really taking that time out to do these little steps, I think is huge. And then having time with yourself and saying, what are my goals? What are my goals? Like, give yourself a minute to think about that. Like, do you want to retire? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to work forever. Maybe you love what you're doing. Maybe you just want to scale and do a different capacity. What does that look like time-wise? When are you thinking? And then are you doing the right things? Are you really being disciplined and putting things into emergency money? Are you doing the right things and putting into savings or investments or whatever that looks like for you, right? I won't blanket it because each individual obviously has their own different story and their different path as we discussed. But I think taking those things into consideration is so huge to put you on a path where you're empowering yourself. Mm-hmm. And don't listen to the 12-year-olds on TikTok, right? Like that's a big one on healthcare and or, wealth matters, right? Make sure that you have a reliable, educated source that's there to help you and be a fiduciary for you.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect and a perfect way to end today's show. But before we do, first, I just want to thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom and like taking the conversation of money out of the taboo world and putting it into everyday language and conversation. And of course, can you please share with us people who want to learn more? Well, obviously we'll have your links in the show notes, but for anyone who's not who's just listening and can't see the show notes specifically.
Yeah, so we are everywhere. I mean, you can pull me up. You can find all of our links to everything just by looking up Jennifer Rogers Markwell, financial advisor, or you can pull up platinumwealth.net, and that's our website that kind of pushes you everywhere along the way, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever. We're everywhere. But if you want to be in the community, that link, like you said, will be in your show notes, and that's again a free community conversation and just a safe space for everyone to learn and grow.
I love it. And I look forward to having all our listeners and seeing them inside of that community. So thank you so much again for being with us here today. And everyone, we'll see you next week for another episode of True Wellness with Dr. D. This is Dr. D reminding you to tune into your body, connect with what matters, and embrace the journey to true wellness. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to redefine their health. Be sure to grab a copy of the True Wellness Checklist right in the show notes. Let's keep redefining wellness and empowering change together. See you for the next episode.